Welcome into the Hot Read podcast for Monday, January 1st. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BrawleySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network. You can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I am joined, recording live as always, on a Sunday afternoon. So this is New Year's Eve, December 31st, by producer JT, who you can follow on social media at JT_Ruhnke. JT, how are you? Happy New Year's Eve. And for folks that are listening to the podcast not live in post, Happy New Year.
Yeah, right. It feels super weird that we're recording this on New Year's Eve, and then tomorrow, like everything that we say is like not gonna
Everything's
matter.
a year late.
Yeah, it's But Derek is also
that kid in high school that would
correct.
show up the first day of school and like, I haven't showered in a year. You know, it's like the jokes they're tough.
But at least Derek is correct at saying at least we don't
Oh.
have to watch the Titans in 2023 anymore, which is true, and I
Yep.
think that's something that we can all appreciate.
No, absolutely. And we're excited to not talk about this Titans game, but talk about everything besides the actual game. And we're excited that there's only one game left of this version of the Titans that we have to endure before we can talk about what should be a really, really exciting offseason draft. Ton of money to spend in free agency, a lot of moving parts, and a lot more to be happy about, to be excited about as a Titans fan coming up after just one more game. With this version of the Tennessee Titans. We are going to discuss the Titans getting rolled by the Texans in Houston, one of the worst football games that I've ever had to sit through and watch the entirety of. It was uncompetitive. It was uncompelling. It was a disaster. It sucked. It was gross. But we're going to talk about that and the few things there are to gain there. We'll talk about Mike Vrabel and like the job security situation. I want to touch on Peter Skoronski a little bit because folks had some thoughts on him this past week and especially after this game. We'll talk about anything that you want to talk about regarding that game in the comments, of which there are many of you already tuning in. I see Joey and Derek and Evan and Dr. Knockers and Nick already all in here in the comment section. You can join them by going on over Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. That's Broadway Sports Media on YouTube. Find this live stream there. And in the comment section on YouTube, that's where you can leave your comments. And we would love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments on this game or on anything else Titans related that you would like for us to discuss in today's episode. Do us a favor if you are listening live. Help us out by spreading this show as best you can. Hit like on YouTube, hit like or retweet on Twitter, hit like or share on Facebook, copy the link, send it to a buddy that you think might be interested in today's show. Whatever you can do to help us get as many live eyeballs on today's product as possible. Be very helpful to us. It'd be considered a end of 2023 gift to us from you. I would very much appreciate that. So thanks in advance for helping us out there. We are brought to you today, as we always are, by Boom Boss Craft Pizza and Tap House. Going to tell you all about them and the lovely, lovely situation they've got with 3 Middle Tennessee locations in the Nashville area. We love it at Boom Boss. We'll tell you more about that later on in today's show. But JT, let's go ahead and dive right into what was a game of all time. The Titans lose. I've blocked the score. 26-3. Is that the final score? Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the correct score.
That's how bad it was. The final 25
it was
minutes
it was a lot to a
time,
little.
I was
That's
half
for sure.
paying attention. It was a lot to a little. I know the Titans only scored 3 points. That part I can guarantee. But you just look up and down this box score. The Texans almost doubled the Titans' first downs, had nearly 10 more total plays run, nearly doubled their total yards, actually had fewer drives than the Titans did somehow. But they had 5.1 yards per play to the Titans' 3.5. It was a disaster class for the Titans. And seeing the Texans offense and the Titans offense juxtaposed on the same screen in the same game was brutal. It was a master class in function and dysfunction. It was so night and day how the Texans, when they wanted something to work, they got it to work. Pretty much anything. And the Titans, if they wanted anything to work, it was a miracle if they managed to get it to work. And that goes for anything. Two teams that are really on polar opposites of their trend line right now. The Titans certainly trending down. This felt like a bit of a new rock bottom for them, JT, which is fitting and not all that surprising. And I don't think it's that indicting considering the skeleton crew of a team that they rolled out there this week. A group that the players that were out there were either guys you don't know or guys you do know and aren't very good. I mean, I'm going to try to find this on the fly here. I meant to bring it up before we started recording today, but I put out, I think it was yesterday, maybe on Friday, a list of the Titans' current IR situation. The players that they currently have on IR is a very, very lengthy one, and there are many really talented players just not playing for this team right now because, frankly, why would they, right? And I'm struggling to find this. Maybe here we go. So the list of the Titans' current injured reserve with 2 games left to play, now 1 game left to play. But going into this game, tight end Josh Wiley, wide receiver NWI, wide receiver Kyrus Jackson, running backs Julius Chestnut and Hassan Haskins, tackles Chris Hubbard and Nicholas Petit-Frere, defensive tackles Jeffrey Simmons, Kyle Pecco, and Shaquille Brown, linebackers Luke Gifford, Chance Campbell, Joe Jones, and Jack Gibbons, cornerback Christian Fulton, safety Monty Hooker, and punter Ryan Stonehouse. That is, I think, 16 players, something like that. A lot of starters in there, a lot of supporting cast players in there. That's not to say that they lost because those guys weren't on the field. That certainly is not all of it. The rest of the Titans team that is still healthy, also not very good. But again, it was a skeleton, especially on defense, right? And that was the big thing today. The Texans offense got pretty much whatever they wanted, especially between the 20s, between the 10s even. Now, it remains hilarious to me, JT, just how successful this Titans red zone defense has been. I think you were tracking it throughout the game. What did they end of the game at? They're still the league's best red zone defense, the best at keeping teams from getting 7 points, forcing 3 points or a turnover on downs or just a turnover. Do you have in the mid 30s?
Yeah, I believe I can check because, like you, this was really a game that I think a lot of us can't be faulted for, but kind of lost interest in very much. Like,
what was there to be interested in? There was
towards the
broadcast
the
crew was getting names wrong on a consistent basis. You had Andrew Dillard out there,
yes,
getting killed. You had at one point they called him Sean Burfy Munting, which was my favorite. That was my favorite part of the day. Terrible broadcast crew, terrible product on the field.
Yeah, so the Texans ended up on the day going 1 for 3 on their red zone attempts. I think they had one late, in which that puts the Titans now at a 38.5% red zone. So I would have to double check.
How?
I didn't see
how.
I didn't see
explain to me right now how they're doing it.
I do not know, but I didn't think so. They may have moved back behind the Atlanta Falcons, but after that performance they had today, I highly doubt it. So I do still think that this Titans team is the best red zone percentage defense in the league, and they're up there as the 3rd or 4th best red zone defense in the last 10 years, which is just absolutely mind-boggling.
Not for the Titans, for the league. Like,
yes, for the
whole
league.
NFL in the last 10 years, they're like the 3rd or 4th best red zone defense. Ridiculous, crazy. I don't know how they're doing that because again, they've got a bunch of guys, they're just no names, guys you don't know. We cover the team, guys we don't know out there playing ball. Couldn't tell you anything about them besides their name and their position. Like, they're getting torched up and down the field, and then in the red zone, they hold up. But again, that was really the only shining moment in this game. Will Levis, of course, maybe we've kind of buried the lead on this. Will Levis goes out there, gets killed on either his 1st or 2nd sack of the day. Tough moment for the John Njoku hive, of which we've kind of flirted with. We've not been full-blown John Njoku guys on this show, but like I was in favor of seeing what they had in the kid in this game and in the end of the season here, as it's fact-finding time for the Titans and seeing what they've got in their players. Well, they tried him out there as an extra. They had him lined up actually as like a jumbo tight end on the play that Levis gets hurt on. Yeah, he gets blown by. Actually, both of the right side linemen get blown by, and it's hilarious because I don't even know who was playing right tackle on that snap, but whoever was actually playing,
I think it was
right.
Radens.
Okay, so if Radens was actually playing right tackle, he's getting killed. But to his right, playing jumbo tight end is Njoku,
who
never gets
stood a chance.
Barely breathed on the guy as he runs by him, murders Levis, knocks him on his butt. Levis probably should have seen it coming because it's not a blindside tackle, but he hardly had any time to even recognize what was happening. But if you watch the play back, Radens, whoever it was playing actual right tackle, looks back like in astonishment that somebody got beat faster than they did, which is impressive, but it did happen. And so he gets hurt. A foot injury, he was deemed questionable and then later downgraded to out. It sounds like it's not related to that ankle injury. So this is like compounding, like another injury. Don't know the severity of it. I'm inclined to say if things were different scenario wise, maybe it would have been one that he toughed it out and got back out there, or at least tried. But given the circumstances, they told him to let's just shut it down, bud. And you obviously are hoping that's the case for the Titans. Either way, the good news is, and folks that are beating their chest who were staunch anti, don't play Levis this week. You can't play him behind this line. It's a nightmare. It is a nightmare, but it was always the right decision to get Will Levis as many snaps as humanly possible in his rookie year. No matter what that looked like, those live reps are invaluable. And so getting as many as you can, even if it means getting hurt, I think is still worth it because, again, you've got a whole offseason for him to heal up. And mentally, I'm not worried about him getting rattled in the head and losing confidence or anything like that. And so it stinks that he didn't play much of this game. Ryan Tannehill, poor guy, had to come in, was kind of dealing at first, like low-key. I think he went like 9 for 9 on his first 9 passes. Was moving the ball pretty well despite, that situation he was playing with out there. He gets killed like 5 or 6 times, gets sacked. I think in total, the Titans got sacked 6 times today. So I think 5 of those were on Tannehill, 4 or 5 of them were on Tannehill. They asked him after the game how he felt. And he said he felt like John Wick at the end of a movie, which big John Wick spoilers here for folks that haven't seen the last one. It's been out for months now. So sorry, get over it. Tune out for 10 seconds if you haven't. I finished watching John Wick 4 last night, and it's a movie in which John Wick, like the most impenetrable, unstoppable man on the face of the planet, dies in the end. So that checks out. That's about how Ryan Tannehill looked and acted towards the end of that game. And I'm sure he's looking forward to not having to play behind that offensive line ever again. Although he might have to next week. We'll have to see. I'm sure he's hoping that maybe let's throw him a week out there. Let's give the young buck a chance. What else to say about this game? You had some record-breaking moments in this game for some of the Titans players, which is hilarious when you put it in the context of our buddy Rob Greenlaw on Twitter. He pointed out that you've got on this team this year. Here are the stats, right? As of today, Harold Landry recorded his 10th and a half sack this season. He added a sack in this game, or maybe 2, but he's at 10 and a half total on the year, which means the Titans, between Danico Autry and Harold Landry, both having north of 10 sacks, they are the only team in the league as of right now that has 2 players with 10 or more sacks. Again, don't ask me how. I don't know. But you also saw DeAndre Hopkins exceed 1,000 yards of receiving today. JT, look at how many yards did he have in total today? I think he had over 100, but I may be wrong about that. The point is he has over 1,000 receiving yards on the season. That's his 7th such season in the NFL.
He had 72 yards. So
72. Okay. So yeah. I don't know why I had 100 in my head. Okay. So he had a good day regardless. And then Derrick Henry exceeded 1,000 yards rushing on the year, which is his 5th such season in the NFL. Both of them, for my money, future Hall of Famers. But you put that all in context. And so we're sitting with 1 game left to go. The Titans, only team in the league with 2 players that have 10 or more sacks, a 1,000-yard wide receiver, a 1,000-yard rusher, and they're going to have like a top 5 pick in the draft. It's pretty impressive. Yeah. That's hard to do, I'd say. But they've managed to do it. What do the folks in the comments have to say about this game, JT? What were your thoughts on this game? I want to dive into some specific topics on Mike Vrabel and Peter Skoronski in a second, but tell me what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of the games where I found it hard to keep watching.
I'm going to be honest. Me like, 10 minutes left in the second quarter, and you're like, can we not? Can I just drink myself into oblivion? And I said, no, you may not.
I mean, on New Year's Eve, I was like coming into the mentality, work hard, play hard, like I'm going to have a good time with some friends and family later. But I was like, gotta be sober right now. And that game made me not want to be sober, like whatsoever.
Yeah. 1:15 PM. You said, I don't think I can watch this game anymore. You texted me, and I just sent you back a picture of that meme from Bird Box where the guy's holding the lady's eyes wide open. I was forcing you to watch this game, and you said, I'm going to drink so much tonight, which is, I think, warranted. Don't hop in a vehicle. But other than that, I think absolutely warranted.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think our one of our buddies, Austin Huff, said it also as well. He was just like, he's like, it's the same thing over and over again. And I just had to tweet out, like we said last week, I think I'm going insane because we're gonna
we're collectively going insane.
We're gonna talk about the same thing here, and that's that this team is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again. Like finally getting a stop on this Texans team and Caleb Murphy, which like. Yeah, we've said like in the short term, he's done pretty good. But Caleb Murphy makes an inexcusable play on the punt, giving the Texans new life, in which they then go down the field 90 yards, score a touchdown, put that game even further out of reach.
It was a 3-and-out inside the Texans' own 10-yard line.
Correct.
And then an inexcusable running into the kicker penalty. Suddenly it's a 92-yard, 7-minute drive for a touchdown.
Yes. And it's just like at this point, like it's ridiculous. I just can't put I can't watch it anymore.
We're running out of words.
I'm running out of words. I really have nothing else to say besides like it like something has to give at some point, and whether that is just an influx of new players or like the changing of an offensive line coach, the changing of a couple of position coaches. I mean, even at this point, like I'm not personally ruling out a firing of the head coach, even though I think it's highly unlikely, but I'm not ruling that out. Like, as I texted you as well, I'm thinking about buying my ticket onto the could Mike Vrabel be fired this offseason train. I'm not doing it, but like I'm considering it because I think all options are on the table, because I'm just like, I feel like I'm losing my mind when I watch this team.
Yeah, and you had your textbook Titans drives in this competition where one in particular that I noted, like they get to midfield, actually moving the ball, and then a drop pass, loss of 5 on a draw play that nobody is really blocking for. And then the quarterback is under pressure on 3rd and 15, and then it ends in a punt. A lot of that, not just this week, but in general. Kenneth in the comments, like clockwork, coming in here saying, I know what Easton will yell, quote, it's the roster, end quote. Yep, that's me. Don't be surprised by the coaching firings come Black Monday, Kenneth says. He is conducting the train, the Mike Vrabel should be fired, will be fired train.
He's the Tom Hanks to my little child Polar Express.
He's the one going crazy on the ticket.
Yeah,
he's clicking out fired on the ticket.
He's trying to get me on the train, and I just don't know if I can do it.
Let's talk about that, Kenneth, and let's talk about that with folks in the comments here. I don't think this game changes anything about Vrabel's job status, which I think is the predictable take. You like Kenneth says, you come in here expecting me to say that. Let me explain why. Because I with each passing week, my animal brain becomes more and more sympathetic to what you and what Kenneth are talking about. And I think there are two schools of thought here. What you said was interesting to me, JT, because you said you're thinking about buying your ticket to the Mike Vrabel might be fired train, which I find interesting because that sounds like you're thinking whether you think he should or not, it might happen. I think there's a difference between thinking he should be and wondering if he will be. Because certain times in NFL history, we have seen pretty regularly, sometimes you see guys get fired that maybe shouldn't be fired. And it's a mistake, but it does happen. I am closer and closer with each passing week to wondering if I should join that train of Mike Vrabel might be fired. I am not anywhere near the Mike Vrabel should be fired train yet. And so here's why. Again, it's the players out there and the players not out there, right? Like we started the show talking about how on defense in particular, you've got guys out there that are folks you've never heard of. On the offensive side of the ball, you've got Andrew Rupchich and hurt Jalen Duncan and John Njoku out there getting meaningful snaps. You got Daniel Brunskill going down mid-game. You've got a very flawed center in blanking help.
Aaron Brewer,
thank you. Totally blanking. Aaron Brewer at center, who's not equipped just as an athlete to hang with inefficient or unusable players around him. I could go on and on about the names that are out there that, like, again, I'm sitting here like racking my brain trying to remember what's that guy's name again, because we don't know these guys because they're not good players. Like, that's the bottom line here. They came into this game knowing they'd be playing a lot of those guys. Like you saw on Saturday, the guys that were being brought up as active game day roster participants and folks that were on this roster as the official starters in this game who you're like, who, what, huh? Kevin Rader's out there getting meaningful snaps. Like it's a bunch of that out there. And I don't think Mike Vrabel rolls into this week. This is my number one reason why I don't think it changes anything. He does not roll into this game, into this week with the roster situation as he had it without having a semblance of security in not worrying about doing anything to lose his job the rest of these last two games. I'm having a hard time articulating this point, I guess, because I don't know for a fact that there are certain players that didn't play in this game that could have. But when you look at the list of guys on IR, especially in the past like 2, maybe 3 weeks since it's become excruciatingly clear, like since the Titans literally got ruled out of the playoffs, like it's not possible. And then suddenly you see guys going on IR and you're like, really? Josh Wiley's going to IR? Jeffrey Simmons is going to IR with 4 games left in the season? The NWI is going to, Amani Hooker's going to IR? Jack Gibbons is going, really? And those moves where, we're tuned into the injury situation, we know as well as anybody on the outside could know, and then you see those and you're surprised by it. That to me indicates like this is a pack it in situation a little bit here, right? Like maybe some of these guys really did have to go to IR, and maybe some really couldn't play. But when you're in a fact finding situation like this team is, where with players like Amani Hooker and Jeffrey Simmons, and to an extent, Jack Gibbons and NWI, you kind of know what you have in those guys. Josh Wiley, a young guy who you're confident you're going to have around next year anyways. Moving them to IR doesn't really mean much. It's a bummer to them as a person, but you move them to IR. It doesn't really hurt the team as far as what the objective is. And the objective, of course, is to find out what you have in the guys you don't know about. And those guys you already know about. And so, again, I'm not saying they could play through their injury. I'm not saying they're only on IR because the Titan season's over. But I'm saying it kind of looks that way, right? I don't think that's tinfoil hatty at all to say that there's probably a lot of players not playing right now for this team that if they were competing for a playoff spot would absolutely be playing.
Yeah, at least specifically players who in some cases know that they will be on this team going forward or
Right.
are still under contract or are players that have always been around this team that they most likely will bring back. Like you have guys like, I'm pretty sure Sean Murphy Bunting has been playing through injury this entire time, but because he's on a 1-year contract, like the dude's not going to go on IR because that hurts his stock as well as like his chance to get a better contract next year. And so like guys like that, I think who aren't under the security of a contract right now, I think that's why you're seeing them out there. So I don't think that's ridiculous to say whatsoever.
And my grand point in bringing that up, again, because we're talking about Vrabel and his job security, is to say I don't think he rolls into these final weeks like this with kind of that pack it in roster management mentality. I don't think him and Rain are doing that if they weren't both secure in what their long-term future, or at least mid to long-term future with this team looks like. And that is not being fired on Black Monday, like Kenneth is alluding to. Now, that's not, and Kenneth did say coaching firings. So if he's alluding to other coaches on this team potentially getting fired, I won't begrudge that at all. I'd imagine after any team finishes 5-12 or 6-11, which the Titans will be doing at this point, I'd imagine any situation like that for any team is going to result in some heads rolling. It kind of has to, right? And so let's talk about that in general, because we've beaten this drum. I hate talking about this because we don't know the answer of what's going to happen. And I've made my point exceedingly clear. I'm sure folks like Kenneth who disagree with me are tired of me saying the same thing over and over. And listen, I'm tired of saying it. Like, I think my position's clear at this point, and nothing has happened to really change that. Folks who disagree with me, your position is clear. I understand your position. I don't think anything's really happened to change that much. You might argue that games like this change that. I really don't think that they do. But the bottom line is we're going to find out soon, right? We're going to find out what's going to happen. And I had a friend of mine, Caden Dreyer. If you happen to see this, Caden, what's up? He's DMing me about, he's a fan of the team. He's DMing me during the game, asking some questions, and we're going back and forth and trying to kind of narrow down again, like how much of this is on the players, how much is on the coaches. Again, to reiterate for the millionth time, it's like everything in life is there's a gray element to everything. Nobody is faultless on this 5-11 team at this point. Nobody. Everybody is at fault. Mike Vrabel's at fault some. Rand Carthen's at fault some. Every player is at fault some. Every coach is at fault some. It's about figuring out who's actually got the majority of the blame. Who's really at fault, right? Who's the most at fault? And the bottom line for this team for me is this. Yes, they may need better coaching at certain positions, at maybe a coordinator position, maybe at head coaching positions, or the head coaching position. That may be the reality. I don't necessarily think so, especially I think the head coach and the 2 coordinators, I think they're all good at their job. I don't think they need better there. But it's a possibility. Like, I'm not going to say definitively that there isn't serious issues there. The problem for me, and the reason why I don't feel comfortable saying definitively the coaching is or isn't good at any position on the coaching roster, is that we know for a fact that they absolutely need much better players across the board. They need dudes, and they don't have dudes. And without dudes out there, it's largely a guessing game when it comes to coaching. And that's like the biggest area of growth for me as an analyst this year, just speaking personally and frankly, like figuring out how I look at and evaluate a team. It's really tough, man. When a group of guys is just not cutting it, they just can't hang at the NFL level. You've got too many cannonball-sized gouges in the side of your ship, and you're taking on water, and your coaching staff is down there in the hold, scooping out buckets as fast as they can. Maybe they suck at it, and they could do a better job, and they could keep the ship afloat. But maybe there's just too many holes. Like, maybe it's a sinking ship no matter who you have at the helm. That's what I constantly am held up on. And that's why I am not opposed to certain coaching positions being looked at for replacement. We talked, what was it, last week about the offensive line coaching, Coach Haas, Coach Jason Houtling, who was brought on with 0 coaching experience, who's clearly not done anything this season to make you think like maybe there's something there. No, there's none of that. But also he's in the same position where it's like, have you seen the guys he's working with? I'm not opposed to the people in that building deciding, yeah, we need to make a change. I'm not going to push back too hard on fans who are like, I'm confident they need to change, because I understand where you're coming from. I really do. So I'm fine with them having some heads roll on Black Monday. But my ultimate point here is I think they might need some better coaching at certain positions, but I'm not sure. I know they need a lot better players on this team. That no matter what the actual issue is, whether or not you know there's an issue at coaching, it's not as big an issue as what they have on the personal side of the ball. JT, that was kind of choppy, and I know that was kind of all over the place. That makes sense. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense, but at the same time, it also is just kind of like there are also things that just have happened week and week over and over again. Like penalties is a huge thing.
Yeah,
it is the biggest thing for this team.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
I think that I don't know if it's what Vrabel is teaching or if it goes down to the level below that says this is a personnel coach, like the position coach, like if that is a thing. Like, there seems to be such a lack of discipline right now on this team that I don't, and to your point, like, also, like, if the players are just bad, like, there's a difference between like this being Vrabel's fault, but also like I don't know inside that locker room if what this is the direct result of what Vrabel is coaching, but also like the players just like they're just not starting caliber players.
So let me make both sides of that argument, because I think this is on the Vrabel is not coaching well. The pantheon of arguments there, I think the most interesting one to me right now is the penalties thing, because you're right, the Titans are consistently week in and week out committing unacceptable penalties and repeat penalties from some of the same players doing the same things over and over. And I 1000% understand fans saying, man, that's coaching. That's got to be coaching. Because in general, we are taught to, and this is true, in general, how disciplined a team is on the field is, again, typically a reflection of how disciplined how tight a ship their coach runs, how well their coach does in teaching that discipline during the work week, right? I get that. 100% I do. Let me present the devil's advocate argument for that, because this is honestly where I kind of fall right now, and why I think it's not a thing for me with Vrabel, where I'm really concerned about that. Although if it continues maybe into next year with different players, maybe then I can be. We saw a Mike Vrabel coached team for years, be one of the more disciplined teams in the league when it comes to penalties, when it comes to game script, like game management, situational awareness, all of these things that the Titans right now are bad at, and all of these things that folks are pointing to and saying, look at this has got to be coaching. We saw him be the opposite of this for years with much better players. He's now got much worse players. And you see these guys, you see Dylan Radins jump off sides for the seventh consecutive game or whatever it is. And the camera on the broadcast pans to Mike Vrabel, who has this look of brokenness on his face. He's rubbing his eyebrows, rubbing his eyes, just defeated. And that to me, like if I'm reading the body language there, that to me is a guy that's saying, dude, we work with this player. We work with this group of players. We work with everybody on the team every single week on these things, teaching discipline every way we know how. And they're just not getting it. They just, it's not getting through to them. Maybe they're just not good enough to not commit the penalties. You know, maybe the guys in the secondary that are caught holding or making illegal contact before the throw, maybe it's not because they don't know not to, but because they have to, or else they're going to get murdered. They're going to get torched out there, right? Maybe it's a snap reaction by the offensive lineman to jump because they know they're getting outmatched by this solo rusher that they're going to have to guard one-on-one here in a minute. That kind of thing. Like there is a line somewhere between discipline and penalties are a coaching issue. And no matter what the coaches do, these players are just going to do it. Like it's the coach. You can't, Mike Vrabel can't not jump off sides. Mike Vrabel can't not make illegal contact in the secondary. Mike Vrabel can't not commit pass interference. He can teach it. He can try, but at the end of the day, it's the players who are doing it. So again, that's the devil's advocation argument to that issue. And man, if I hadn't seen him do it for years with players and be the opposite of this, I'd be inclined to agree. But we've seen him run a tight ship with players that can run a tight ship. Right now, he doesn't have players that can do that.
Yeah, and Evan James here in the comments says, I don't think he should be fired yet, but I do think that the magnifying glass should be on him. The roster turnover this offseason may be legendary, which I think is also a very fair point. Derek in the comments also says, can we just opt out of the Jags game? Which would be funny, but also I think Jacob brings up a good point that says anyone with a modicum of pride will want to beat Jacksonville in Nashville next week and ruin their season. It's the rival thing to do. So I like I said, we talked about this, that in these divisional games, today was tough because like, I think they, for better or for worse, they came out with no gas whatsoever in this game. And then once Will Levis was out of the game, I think that kind of put the final nail in the coffin. But especially, as we said, this team plays better at home anyways. Getting Jacksonville next week at home, who I still don't think is that much better of a team, to be honest, like in terms of like against the Texans, like
well, the grand scheme of the NFL, they're pretty mediocre, I think.
Yeah, I think that they're going to want to go out there and they're going to try to ruin the Jaguar season just like they ruined their season last year.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love that Jacob brings this up and we're going to talk about it this week, but there's a lot for the Titans to a lot of reasons for the Titans to want to win that game next week. They are fighting to not go winless in their division. They are fighting to get revenge on a team that has beaten them 3-4 times in a row now, 3 at least, I think. They're fighting in week 18 for the second year in a row against the same team at the very end of the year. This is the second time where the Jacksonville can punch their ticket to the division title and hosting a playoff game. Titans don't want that to happen. So they're going to fight in that game. They may not win. They may get murdered. I don't know. But you've got a beat up Jacksonville team not playing with their starting quarterback. Titans may not either, but there's plenty there. Can we just be done? Can we talk about this game more maybe later in the week? Let's talk about the draft position, because let's talk about the hope that lies on the horizon for this team. And we've got an interesting situation brewing for this Titans team where we are slowly, with one game left and with some games with implications currently going on in the late afternoon window, we're starting to narrow down what the Titans draft spot's going to look like. So let's talk about that here in just a second. Before we do, got to tell you about our wonderful and amazing sponsors here at the Hot Read Podcast. Boomboss Craft Pizza and Tap House. Man, they are awesome. We love Boomboss Craft Pizza and Tap House. JT, you're going to be back this week for our Boomboss episode, correct?
Indeed, I will.
Back in house. So I know you're craving some of that good, delicious Boomboss Craft Pizza and Tap House drinks that they have on tap. A great local and domestic selection for you. We love it at Boomboss. Half the fun is getting to hang out with the folks at the bar and in the restaurant and watch Thursday Night Football on Thursdays after we do our show. Again, we do our live show at Boomboss in Spring Hill at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time each Thursday. And then we hang around afterwards, grab a bite, grab a drink at the bar, hang out with whoever's there, give away gift cards to whoever comes and says, hey, and we have a good time. It's delicious. It's really, really fun. The folks there are fantastic. We love the people that run the establishment. So couldn't recommend Boomboss more. And if you don't want to come to Spring Hill, which is only about 20, 25 minutes down I-65 if you're in the Nashville area, you can go to one of their other 2 locations in Middle Tennessee. They got Spring Hill, where we are located on Thursdays. They've got East Nashville, and they've got Murfreesboro. Those 3 locations here in the Middle Tennessee area. Also locations in Kentucky and Indiana if you're from out of town. But man, Boomboss is awesome. We love them, and we love how they, as Jacob says in the comments, make bad football games good. Absolutely, they do. We look forward to hopefully continuing our sponsorship with Boomboss for a very long time, maybe into the draft season, hopefully. Just shout out to the folks at Boomboss. We'd love to make that happen. We'll be in talks about that. But for now, we love Boomboss, and we love being there each and every Thursday, which will be through to the Super Bowl. So excited about that. All right, JT, let's talk about the draft positioning, and let's pull up that graphic that we pulled. Here's the Tankathon picture for how the Titans and the NFL's draft situation is shaping up as of, again, right now on Sunday afternoon, with some late games still pending and the Sunday night game still pending. Titans are currently sitting at 6th. Now, functionally, they're at 7th because right now, and maybe things have changed since the beginning of the episode. JT, are the Chargers still looking like they're going to lose this game?
Yeah, the Chargers are still, in fact, losing this game, and Easton Stick doesn't seem to be performing any better.
Poor guy. Okay, so assuming that Chargers lose that game to the Broncos, the Titans will be at 7th behind the Panthers, who pick belongs to the Bears, Washington, New England, Arizona, the Giants, and the Chargers. They are now locked in somewhere between 4th and 8th. With this loss today, worst case is they win next week, and they're going to drop down to 8th overall. Best case is they can get all the way up to 4th. And I think I've done the math on this correctly. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is correct. That is the window in which they are sitting. And there are 4 results next week that are going to dictate where the Titans end up. One of them moves them up a spot, and then the other 3 each will move, whichever of those 3, each check mark in the Titans' favor in any of those games moves them up 1 spot. So, of course, Jacksonville needs to beat Tennessee for them not to be 8th overall. If Jacksonville beats Tennessee, they stay at 7th, right? And then these 3 games are what you're looking for if you're a Titans fan next week. If the Chargers beat Kansas City, they move up a spot. Unlikely, but possible. If Arizona beats Seattle, they move up a spot. And if the Giants beat Philadelphia, they move up a spot. So that's what you're looking at. The strength of schedule situation is kind of fluky, but I believe that it's going to pan out this way no matter what. I think it's just wins and losses right now. Maybe there's some scenarios in which the strength of schedule situation changes. The Titans did not get any favors done for them this week in terms of the strength of schedule because of all of the AFC South teams besides them winning this week. So I think 4 is the ceiling, 8 is the floor at this point, and those are your results you're looking for next week. The Chargers beating Kansas City or coming back today to beat Denver, potentially. Arizona beating Seattle, and the Giants beating Philly. So JT, with 8th overall being the floor for this team, the worst case scenario for them, which is a good worst case scenario for this team that needs players badly, it functionally guarantees them one of the following players, should they choose to draft them. Tackle Joe Alt, tackle Olu Fashanu, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver Malik Neighbors, wide receiver Rome Odunze, or tight end Brock Bowers. Like those, and again, some folks gave me flack for including Rome Odunze into that. I've made this clear before. Let me make it clear again. And I think I'm speaking for JT here too. I don't really start my draft prep in earnest until the new year. New Year's tomorrow, so that's when I'll start. But until then, it's like I'm paying attention to the college stuff. I'm paying attention on social media. I'm briefly looking at some other folks' draft boards and becoming familiar with the situation, the players that are in the game here. But I don't really do our actual diehard evaluation where we're talking through top 10 players each position and ranking guys and having really strong opinions on them. That will all come in the new year. So that starts tomorrow. Looking forward to that. So if you think it's crazy for Odunze to be involved there, if you say so, I don't know. I've not really done the work on that yet. But the point is, I know that Joe Alt's up there. I know Uluf Chanda's up there. I know Marvin Harrison Jr. is up there. I know Malik Neighbors up there. I know Brock Bowers is up there. And if you get 3 quarterbacks in the top of the draft, which Titans fans should be, that's your number one non-Titans related, but Titans adjacent narrative that you want to push during draft season this year, Titans fans. So if you want to join the propaganda train, hop on. You need to push these quarterbacks up the list. And we know each spring, there's always a guy or 2 people they convince themselves on, they fall in love with. Ooh, did you see the kid at Oregon? Did you see the kid at Washington this year? Good player. Man, that Jaden Daniels, Heisman winner, Jaden Daniels. I mean, he may not be the top 2 guys, but he's a top 5 pick. Could happen. That's what you need. You need those narratives to just push those guys, get teams to convince themselves. JJ McCarthy won the national title. Whoa. I'm just saying, there's a lot of guys in this draft class that you could convince yourself get pushed up that board. And the more quarterbacks get pushed up the board, the more tasty skill position players get pushed down further into Titans range. And you get more and more of your pick of the litter, and your pick becomes more valuable. So that's what you want to be pushing. Yeah, this is good, JT. That's the situation on the draft. Any additional thoughts on that?
I mean, just like you, I will say I texted you the other day. I just took a screenshot of the PFF mock draft simulator, and I just said, it calls to me. And I'm just
fire up the machine.
I'm ready, man.
Blow the dust off.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun offseason for sure. I can't believe we got 1 game to go, and so, what could happen? Maybe we'll spend at this time next week, we'll be laughing our butts off because the Titans shocked the world and got a win like that old Bengals team got against the Ravens that got the Bills that playoff berth one time. Maybe we're sitting here laughing at Jags fans next week because that's indeed what happened. But for right now, it's going to be a fun offseason, and I'm excited.
All right. Well, do we have any news today? I don't want to cut you off before we get out of here, but do we have?
I mean, the news is that the Best Bet Gauntlet. We can give updates on that, but besides that, I mean, we're fresh off the heels of
before you say Titans what our record is. So we've had a really historic run on the Best Bet Gauntlet. The last 5 or 6 weeks, we've been 70%. We've just been printing cash, and it's been awesome. We've gotten kind of spoiled because you and I we're panicking a little bit in the early window, oh no, our week is falling apart. We're going to undo all our progress. We felt like we were finally having a nightmare week, and then we look up at the end of the early window and we're 3-3 on the day and plenty of room left to make money. So what have we succeeded at or finished so far, and what are we still pending in the Best Bet Gauntlet?
Yeah, so currently you are 500 going 2-2 pending Pittsburgh right now, in which they are looking good right now. So they're up 4. You have them at 4.5, so that's always good. And I'm 1-1 pending a lot of late games here. Cincinnati, who is still leading the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chargers, who, like I said, are currently losing by 7 to the Broncos, and then Green Bay tonight as they take on the Jaren Hall-led Minnesota Vikings.
Okay, so we're looking like we're going to have a feisty week. We're going to have a fine week as long as things don't fall apart here down the stretch. That's good. We continue to make money, and folks hopefully are betting with us, so that's good news. All right, I think we're done for today. It's been a weird one. Happy New Year to everybody. I'm going to go and party and have some fun. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll go figure it out. JT, I know you're going to hang out with some friends and family, so you enjoy your time. You've worked hard. Now you can party hard. I release you. I hope everybody else has a good, safe, and responsible New Year's Eve. If you tune in with us live, we, I believe, are going to be back to a regular 3-show schedule this week. So I think we'll have a show on Tuesday as well as our Boomboz show on Thursday. Definitely at Boomboz. Tuesday show. Make sure you're following us on all our social channels at Hot Read Pod, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram for updates as to whether or not that show's going to happen. But I think it's going to. Dr. Knocker saying Happy New Year, Broadway Sports Media fans. Indeed. It's been a phenomenal year of the show. Genuinely, from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you so much for listening. For all of you that tuned in with us once or 100 times this year, thanks a ton for being a part of this show. We wouldn't do it if people didn't listen, and you listen, so we appreciate that. until the new year, until Tuesday. For producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. Enjoy the holiday. We'll talk to you later this week.